I used to think the same thing everyone tells you online. Cash is king. The more money you have sitting safely in a savings account, the more secure you are. But at some point, I realized something uncomfortable. My emergency fund kept growing, yet my actual financial position wasn't improving. The money felt safe, but it wasn't working for me, and that sense of safety came at a real cost. This video isn't about taking wild risks or gambling your future on speculative plays. I'm not here to tell you to YOLO your emergency fund into meme stocks or crypto. What I want to talk about is optimization, specifically how most people misunderstand emergency funds and how the popular 6 to 12 months of expenses rule can be wildly inefficient depending on who you are and how your life actually works. Most major financial institutions say roughly the same thing. Keep 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash, and if you're self-employed or running a business, maybe push that to 12 months. That advice is genuinely helpful when you're starting from zero. Vanguard even found that getting your first couple $1,000s saved can increase your perceived financial security by more than 20%. That first cushion matters a lot. The problem starts when you keep going without ever asking when enough is enough. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud. Cash is not risk-free. It just hides its risk extremely well. And inflation is the silent killer in this equation, because while your savings balance doesn't go down, the real value of what that money can buy absolutely does. If your savings account pays 4% while inflation is running at 5%, you're losing 1% of purchasing power every single year, quietly and automatically, with no market crash required. Stretch that out over a decade and the damage becomes obvious. You can lose 10 to 20% of your buying power without ever touching the money. $20,000 today might feel like $20,000 forever, but 10 years from now it might only buy what $18,000 buys today. That loss doesn't feel dramatic, which is why our brains ignore it. We're wired to fear sudden drops more than slow erosion, so cash feels like a warm blanket even as it's slowly dissolving. And inflation isn't even the full story. There's a second hit most people don't account for, which is opportunity cost. Because when money sits idle, it's not just losing value, it's also missing the chance to grow. People like to call excess cash dry powder, but most of the time it's just lazy money, essentially unemployed capital. Imagine someone with a $40,000 emergency fund. Realistically, their true emergency need might only be $20,000, roughly 6 months of bare-bones expenses. That extra $20,000 feels comforting, but over 10 years it tells a very different story. Left in cash after inflation, it might effectively shrink to $17,000 in real terms. Invested conservatively with a modest 5 to 8% real return, that same money could grow to around $25,000. That's an $8,000 difference. That's the price of emotional comfort. Once I saw that, I had to reframe the whole idea. I stopped calling it an extra emergency fund and started calling it what it really was: idle capital. The goal isn't to feel safe at all costs, it's to be safe and grow at the same time. Historically, stocks and bonds have beaten cash over long periods, and pretending otherwise is choosing comfort over math. The key is defining what you actually need in an emergency. Not your current lifestyle spending, but your true survival spending, what I call apocalypse mode, which covers rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, basic groceries, and minimum debt payments, while intentionally excluding vacations, eating out, and any subscriptions you'd cancel the moment things got tight. Most people are shocked when they do this honestly. Someone spending $2,000 a month can often survive on $1,200 if they have to. That difference changes everything. Once you know that minimum monthly cost, the next step is adjusting for risk, and this is where the one-size-fits-all advice breaks down. If you have a stable job and maybe even a second income in the household, you don't need a year of cash, and 3 to 4 months is often enough. If you rely on a single income in a volatile industry, 6 months makes more sense. If you're a freelancer or business owner with unpredictable cash flow, 9 to 12 months can be reasonable. You take that minimum monthly cost and multiply it by your personal risk factor. That final number is what I call your SWAN number. And this number matters because it acts as a hard ceiling, not a vague suggestion. If you're below it, keep saving, no debate. But once you hit it, you stop adding to cash, not because saving is bad, but because saving past that point becomes inefficient, and any dollar above your SWAN number should be deployed elsewhere unless you have a clearly defined near-term expense like a home purchase, a business launch, or a known major cost. Stopping cash contributions doesn't mean stopping discipline, it means redirecting discipline. You're still saving, just saving into assets designed to grow. This is where most people get stuck in false binaries, thinking in terms of cash versus stocks or safe versus risky, even though that's not how money actually works. The smarter approach is matching time horizon with the right tool, keeping money you need within a year liquid, placing money you'll need in 1 to 3 or even 5 years into short-term bonds, treasury bills, or CDs, and investing money you don't need for 5 years or more into a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds. Liquidity isn't as fragile as people think. You don't need instant access to $50,000 at all times. Selling investments and having cash in your account in a couple of days is usually more than enough for real-world emergencies. Once you calculate your SWAN number, the math gets simple. Take your total cash, subtract that number, and what's left becomes deployable capital. If the market scares you, that's fine, because you don't need to jump in all at once, since dollar-cost averaging 10% a month over 10 months is boring, automated, and incredibly effective. And that's exactly the point, because the goal isn't excitement, it's progress. Over time, what you end up with is an emergency fund that's exactly the right size and an investment portfolio that actually compounds. You stop paying an invisible tax for feeling safe. You stop confusing stillness with stability. The big takeaway is this: cash is not risk-free. Safety has diminishing returns. Your emergency fund should be based on minimum survival costs rather than your current lifestyle spending. Your multiplier should reflect your real income risk instead of generic advice. And once you hit your number, your job shifts from defense to offense. That's how you stop feeling safe and start becoming financially stronger.